Hey everyone, this is Ryan of happyhealthyvegan.org, and today I'm here to talk about the diet that the best runners in the world eat. I got this idea for today's episode from a fellow runner on 30bananasday.com, Joe Barry Sweet and Raw, so thank you for posting this. All right, so the researchers in this study monitored everything that went into the mouths of 10 elite Kenyan runners, and we're talking elite, world-class runners, world record holders, I believe. I remember Olympic medalists. And if you guys don't know, Kenyan runners dominate the running world, so they just didn't pick these Kenyans randomly. These are world-class, top of the world-class athletes. So they measured what they ate in a 7-day period at their training camp in Kenya at the peak of training season. And what they found out is that they got nearly 80% of their calories from carbohydrates, 76.5% to be exact. And they got 10.1% of their calories from protein, and the remaining calories, 13.4%, came from fat. And yeah, they're not vegans. They ate a little bit of meat. It says meat, primarily beef, was eaten just about 4 times a week in fairly small amounts. We're talking about 100 grams, 3.5 ounces. So it's not like Americans where meat's the main dish and they put a little bit of plant food around it. No, just meat was eaten sparingly. The second thing I'd like to point out, they do something else super important. After their workouts, within an hour, they all had carbohydrates to eat. And most of you may or may not know that when you have carbohydrates within an hour of a workout, the rate at which you replenish your lost glycogen stores from that workout are increased dramatically. So these guys are burning their carbs and they're putting it right back in right after a workout. So their glycogen levels are maxed out as much as possible. And a third thing I'd like to mention that the researchers pointed out was that the Kenyans' diets is remarkably similar to another infamous group of runners, the Tarahumara Indians from Mexico. You may have read about them in Born to Run. If you haven't read that book, it's awesome for runners and non-runners alike. But their diet, it turns out, is 80-10-10 as well. They get about 75 to 80% of their calories from carbohydrates, 12% from fat, and 13% from protein. Does that sound familiar? That's like the Kenyans. And like the Kenyans, they eat copious amounts of cornmeal along with tons of beans. And like the Kenyans, I remember in Born to Run, they had meat, but again, just once in a while, not at every meal, unlike what we do here. So once again, the best 2 runners, most infamous runners in the world are high-carb, near-vegan athletes. So this should be the final word on what diet is best for runners. So you have all this nonsense out here these days, like these low-carb runners, paleo runners, and all this stuff. Yeah, do that, fine. And all us high-carbers are going to run right past you. You guys are taking all these nutritional supplements, protein supplements, while these elite athletes took none. I'm talking nothing, no vitamins, no whey protein, and all this nonsense. They got all their nutrition, every last bit, from their diets. And to close it off, I'd like to point out how well this has worked for me. Not to spend too much time on it, but most of you know I like to run. But you know, I'm not a great runner, guys. I remember when I did my first 5K a little over a year ago, I didn't practice at all. Meaning I was just going in on the conditioning I brought in from other sports like basketball and tennis, where you run and stop, run and stop. So I just entered the race with no training other than a run a week before to see if I even could do the distance without stopping. And I did it in 26 minutes, beating 86% of the fellow runners I competed against. I was in the top 14%. And this year, that same race, I trained this time for 3 months, pretty intensely working on my aerobic conditioning. And this time I finished in the top 8%. You know, so I think, you know, that shows I'm not as much about my running skill, but how far I could take my limited running ability, just running off full glycogen stores, you know, carbon up, just like the Kenyans and Tarahumara Indians. So post your comments down below. Let me know. Are you a high carb runner too, or a low carb runner? Does this make sense? You know, I think it makes complete sense. If you're running, you want to have your glycogen stores filled up to the max. And if you don't believe me, look at the results of the Kenyans and the Tarahumara Indians. So post your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe down there too. And until next time, guys, keep it carved, keep it carved.